I want to share with you one of my favorite quotations from Eduardo Galeano, a Uruguayan writer and journalist. He says, "Scientists say we are made of atoms. A little bird told me we are made of stories." The quantum physicist and a frequent guest on Quantum Revolution, Dr. Amit Goswami, often refers to the quantum realm as the realm of archetypes. Archetypes are simply neutral parts or elements of stories. These quantum archetypes take on shape and form and manifest in our lives once we give them meaning. The meanings we give these quantum archetypes construct our personal narrative, the story we tell ourselves and the world about who we are and how we are. The story we tell ourselves and the world about who we are and how we are creates our experience of reality. Your story programs your brain and your heart to pay attention to the experiences, ideas, and thoughts that match your personal story. When you tell a good story, you notice all the good in your life and you create more of it. And of course, the opposite is true. If the quantum world is made of atoms, and we have the power to shape our experience of the quantum world through storytelling, then one of the most powerful things we can do to shift our personal and collective experience of the world is to become sovereign over our stories. We get to decide who we are and how we are. Today's guest is Kamakshi Hart, a spiritual psychologist who combines her years as a trauma-informed counselor and transformational coach with her gifts as a storyteller and performer in her 2 award-winning one-woman shows, Wild at Heart, A Tale of Trauma and Triumph, and Resilient AF, Rising to the Occasion. Kamakshi is unique among solo theater artists with her background in trauma healing, her deep wisdom, and insights into the human experience combined with her talent to bring stories to the page and the stage. She's also unique as a coach and healer with her profound understanding of the impact of trauma and its effect on every aspect of one's health and well-being.
You're listening to Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker, exploring new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. Join us in intimate conversations with cutting-edge scientists, spiritual leaders, artists, disruptors, and visionaries who are working towards reframing the narrative of our future by healing the rift between spirituality and science, reclaiming creativity, and laying the foundation for a new world. And now, here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Quantum Revolution. I'm Dr. Karen Curry Parker, and I'm here today with Kamakshi Hart. And we're going to be exploring how to transform and explore the story you tell about trauma through art and creative self-expression. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because I have have enjoyed learning about our guest today. I've spent a lot of time on her Instagram page, which I'll give you the link to later, where you can see little cuts and snippets of this beautiful woman who has turned her own experiences, her own challenges into one-woman shows, including a show called Wild at Heart, A Tale of Trauma and Triumph, and Resilient AF, which the subtitle of that is Rising to the Occasion. So I have to start and just say, how did you ever get from the heaviness and the pain of life's challenges and traumas to turning it into this really fun one-woman, very dramatic shows, all these shows that you do?
Good question. I often wonder that myself. Really. I have that saying has come to me so many times, there, but for the grace of God go I. I can come up with all kinds of answers to that, but a lot of it is, I think I came out of the womb filled with hope and light, and the world did everything possible to dim that, to break me down. Any examples from my personal history would cause people to gasp and go, "How did you make it?" And yet somehow I persevered. So I do feel that the messages of the show were called out from me to share with others, to bring that hope into the world, that no matter what you've been through, you can find your way home to your true self and live a joyful life again.
I love that. So how did you get out of the story of your own traumatic past? Because I find that when we talk to people or when we work with people, even when when we have nice conversations with our friends in a coffee shop, we oftentimes start our conversations with this thing happened to me. I have this story. This is the identity of my very painful past. How did you go, okay, wait a minute, that's not my story anymore, or that's not the story that's going to define me. I'm going to do it different. What sparked that in you?
Well, I was a seeker, so in the intensity of the pain, of course, I was seeking help, and I was always spiritually drawn. And the first thing that I found that was the most life changing was yoga, and I dove in very, very deeply. I was in my late 20s, so it was a little later on, but I was at a huge crisis. Um, and where the patterns of my trauma had brought me, which is a lot of what I detail in my second show, specifically Resilient AF. And so I lived in this ashram called the Kripalu Center for Yoga, which is where I received my name Kamakshi, which means seeing through the eyes of loving,
Mm,
and especially seeing myself through the eyes of love. And it was a very deep program, a very transformational. It wasn't just what you think of doing yoga postures. So I started to take on all of these revelatory ideas about I could change the way that I look at my life. And I also could have this somatic opportunity to literally bring things up out of my body to be able to heal. And I was in a community
mhm,
where so many other people were doing this type of work. And then the next chapter that I then needed to find, which I didn't realize at the time, because I moved out, I started my own yoga studio in Washington, D.C. And then um, 9/11 happened. And I was in Washington, D.C., and everything went like seriously wonky in DC. It was insane. And a lot of other things occurred that started triggering my trauma. And at that point, I actually didn't really know the extent of it.
mhm.
And I didn't really know I was a trauma survivor because nobody had given me that context. I didn't know I had complex PTSD. I just thought something was wrong with me. So then I realized I needed more help. And I was leading everybody else and burning out, and I was having a health crisis. So at
Mm,
40, I moved to Los Angeles, just north of, luckily, in a beautiful mountain canyon. And I found this University of Santa Monica and a degree in spiritual psychology.
mhm,
And that is where I realized that I had had enormous trauma as a child that had been repressed. And then I started to learn how that everything else made sense of the continued traumas and what then developed in my world. And so that gave me the tools, the biggest tools of all, to recognize that I couldn't change what happened to me, but I could change how I looked at what happened to me and how I felt about myself about what had happened to me. And that was the ultimate game changer.
So do you feel like you just reframed your perspective on the story and took back control over your own story, or even in spite of the events that happened that you had no control over?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, it's definitely not as simple as that sounds. You know, there's a lot of emotional work. It's like with all the talk of mindset out in the world, and I know some people are talking about, oh, but you've got to do the heart set in order to do the mindset, and that's absolutely true. My teachers said healing happens 100% at the emotional level,
Mhm.
and so in order to reframe, in order to become that story editor, I had to go into that very deep place of personal healing with my inner child, and that the inner child work and the specific compassionate self forgiveness work that was formulated by my teachers at the university. Those were the two most life changing and healing processes. And then there were so many others. And in my work, I teach and train people and all of these different tools. And principles and practices of spiritual psychology because it's and I actually in my first show I depict the process that would go on in the room at the in our weekend programs there when my repressed memories surface. So I have voiceover. It's all solo because it's solo theater. So I have voiceover, and I actually create the entire what's called a trio experience on the stage.
Amazing. So you talk a lot about resilience,
Yes.
and yet you have this sort of background of trauma. How does trauma impact resilience?
Well, I actually just heard somebody say, we have no reason to find out whether we're brave unless something intense and negative impacts us. If nothing happens, we don't ever get to find out, right?
Mhm.
If we're brave, courageous, or resilient. Um, you know, given the way of looking at things that I align with, which is I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and and there's without question that I came here to have a human experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So I'm in the messiness of my humanness, you know, and I can withdraw from that I'm going to have shit happen,
Mhm.
and so I wouldn't, there's no way to become resilient unless, again, the same, you know, unless you've had to contend with things. And that does seem to lend to a formation of character. And the characters of, in terms of people that I know who are characters, who are
Mhm.
really interesting, amazing people who just blow my mind are the people that I know who've been through some of the worst things.
Yeah.
Not that I want to run out and say, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if some bad things happen to me?" No, of course not. But there is a correlation, and there's also a lot of scar tissue. So it's such a combination of first the first work and ongoing work is tenderness,
Mm, mhm.
tenderness and gentleness with oneself. And how do I disengage from the very masculine testosterone world of everything is about product and proving and success metrics and all of these that are so persistent in our culture, right? And that can be the absolute most toxic experience that you can have as a trauma survivor at times because there's a need for most of us to find safety,
Mhm.
and it's an ongoing thing, and so the only place we can ever really be safe is in here.
Mhm.
And so that first line of comfort is discovering, how do I make my interior my own safe haven? And
So
that's a lot. So yeah, please.
yeah, well, and it sort of leads me to an exploration of a question that I ask my guests a lot, and that is, you use the term tenderness. How do you know when you're using tenderness as a way of self love and bridging that gap between the old story of what happened to me in the past and reclaiming a new story? How do you know that you're being tender versus, say, hiding out? What would be some of the signs that maybe you're being tender and you're also maybe not moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I would say, and I know this one very, very well. All about hiding out, big time. And it is really difficult to not judge myself for hiding out. And judging myself, and this is again one of the cornerstones of my training, judging myself will only basically make it worse. It will only cause me to want to hide out more. And if I try to push myself, it's just I'm gonna dig my heels in even deeper. And
Mhm.
then my inner teenager is gonna come out and say, F you. I'm not doing anything you're asking me to do because you're being mean. It's like I mean, I've done a lot of, inner child dialogues. And teen Diane, my birth name is Diane, she comes out in both of my shows because she has a big voice. So it seems like a fine line, but again, I would say the hiding out is a call for tenderness.
Mm. Mhm.
So that's because I don't feel safe. If I'm hiding out, I don't feel safe. And who don't I feel safe with? The most is myself, because there's no greater pain I've found in the universe than me betraying myself,
Mm.
me not having my own back, me not believing myself. And so, even though it also can include, I don't feel safe in whatever setting I'm in to maybe put myself out there more. And I've had this come up so many times in my life where I've just judged the heck out of myself for, um, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you promote yourself more? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Well, all that is, like the giant club coming out and bang, beating myself up. And it's it's not gonna take me anywhere actually productive. And it doesn't bring me into that whole and holiness in myself where when I am loving myself, forgiving myself, tender with myself, and saying, "Hey, I wanna know what's really going on and what do you need inside," to that younger self. That's where the magic happens.
Mhm.
And then whatever arises from there is really connected to my soul, not my ego
Mhm.
or my mind thinking, "Oh, I have to do something a certain way to compete in the world."
So you do something really clever, and I haven't seen your whole show. I've just seen snippets of things that you do, but I think it's really fascinating in that you actually you add a lot of drama to the story of your transformation, and that drama almost gives it a lightness, and even makes the story sometimes a little bit funny, almost as if you can get enough distance on it to where you can not be as connected to it. How do you support people in reframing that perspective? And in conjunction with that, I want to know, do people come back to you and they say, "Oh, you're just bypassing with this funny little thing that you do?"
Yeah. Well, if you saw the whole show,
Mhm.
um, nobody has ever thought I'm bypassing.
Good.
Which I definitely have that on my radar big time.
Mhm.
I have a nose for spiritual bypass, and I totally do. And it's not something I do. And I believe that it's because I've lived it and delved into it all so thoroughly that I can. I think a lot of like brilliant comedians, right? I just saw this totally random clip of Robin Williams from years ago, and I was just like, "Oh my god." I mean, he was just brilliant,
Mhm.
It's in so much pain, and and there's an example of unhealed where it's going to the humor to almost an excess. And
Mhm.
for me, when you see the whole show, it's like there's quite a balance. There's the comedy and the tragedy, there's the pathos, there's the understanding. I weave in almost like infomercials about trauma, about sound bites of where it comes from, what it perpetuates. Um, but what and obviously I didn't invent this form of solo theater. It's out there, to do multiple characters and use music or use all kinds of other things
Mhm.
to because the entertainment aspect in terms of making it theatrical
Mhm.
is it helps people assimilate the tragic, because the stories can be really intense. And so it also is demonstrating, in and of itself, it's demonstrating my resilience. It's
Right.
demonstrating that, and for all of us, it's like that all of the trauma and tragedy and feeling like I'd rather die than keep going through all of this horrible stuff. And yet somehow getting through it and also being able to still laugh
Mhm.
and still find the humor in the humanness, is in and of itself to me a healing event to witness, you
Yeah.
know.
I think I certainly would encourage people to go watch even just the little snippets because
Oh,
it does lend perspective. And it's not like you're laughing at the situation, but you are. I think sometimes maybe I'm not wording. Let's see if you relate to this wording. You're laughing at the way the direness of the narrative can sometimes hold you back when there's so much good around you and you can't see it.
Yes. Yeah, I 100% hear you on that, and that is so well said. Yes, exactly.
So you talk about I want to before we go, I want to talk about one other term that you use that I'm just fascinated by is you talk about the story editor and how people can become the story editor of their life. Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, there's the things that happen to us.
Mhm.
There are the ways in which we remember the things that happen to us. And and then there's the truth that we are all perceiving. So I'm not talking about like really hardcore things like sexual assault, which I've experienced multiple times in the past. That is something that needs to be 100% believed. But the story that outflows from that about I'm not enough, I'm not, I'm damaged, I'm broken, I'm, whatever, or then seeing what's to come, like I try to show within that play, is that then I took on that I was always in that victim role. I was always in that like, oh, what's wrong with her? Or, oh, other worse names that I was called. Um, and then then it developed this inner low self-esteem that connected and not always really, I didn't even know it. I didn't even realize how all those things had layered in. And that's the story that I can edit. That's where I have power. I can't change the awful things that have happened from the past, but I can change the way I look at them and what I extrapolate from them.
Mm.
And so I can look through the eyes of, oh my God, I'm so broken. It was horrible what happened to me. How could I have even survived any of that? And I'm somehow, you know, tainted. I don't know, all kinds of things like that. But I can instead go, wow. And this is with Resilient AF, where I portray resilience as a superheroine, is
Mhm.
because I'm showing that sense of superpower that somehow, some way I got through my life because I had access to that level of strength in me, even when I was young, and I have no idea why,
Mhm.
honestly,
Mhm. Mhm.
except for higher power, you know? So, and whoever I came in at the soul level to be. But I can look back and go, wow, you were so courageous. Oh my gosh, you're so brave. You're so strong, that in the resilience level of strength that you kept going, you kept finding a way to keep on keeping on. And I love you so much. And you're actually freaking amazing. It's like you look at the superheroes and the Marvel series, for
Mhm.
example, right? All their stories are of woundedness,
Right, right.
and they all develop their superpowers out of their wounds.
Yeah.
And so we have that ability, and we don't have to be up on a stage acting like a superhero. It can all take place in a very quiet life. It's but that the truth is that where I have control is on how I see myself, how I am with myself, the things I say to myself, and the choices that then I can then make as a result that are positive and self-affirming and uplifting. But the healing has got to be in there with all of that to rearrange things. Like I was said earlier, there's got to be the emotional healing in order to be able to start utilizing the mind to be that editor, to be that critical thinker, and be going, look at that. Look how A plus B equaled C in the past, but I could change. A happened, yes. B, this is what then happened as a result. C is what I'm making it mean. I can change that.
Yeah. That's powerful. That's powerful. So if people want to work with you, how can they work with you?
Well, going to my website, sending me a message saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And that first conversation is a complimentary discussion, like, most coaches do. And we find out, how can I help you? Is this the right fit? And then there's numerous modalities that I use, whether we're on Zoom or for anyone who happens to want to come to Topanga, California, north of Los Angeles.
It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful
But I do
place.
help people actually, write their stories.
Mhm.
But the most important thing is doing the internal healing work, the transformation work, and they can be done alongside each other, which is very cool.
Very powerful, very powerful. So you can find Kamakshi on her website, Kamakshi Hart, that's HART.com. I will post the link to the website in the show notes. So if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this on a podcast, go to the show notes. You can go directly to Kamakshi's website. You can also find her on Instagram and Facebook as at Kamakshi Hart. And again, I'll post all the links in the show notes for those of you who want to connect with her. Do go at the very least, go to the Instagram, her Instagram page, and just watch the little snippets from the show. It's incredible. Where is your show now? Are you still live traveling with it, or?
I have been on pause. I had an actual injury and surgery this past year, so it will come back. So anyone who's interested in more about the shows, bringing the show to where you are, that conversation, same thing, just send me an email and happy to talk about it. I'm starting to rev up again.
Awesome. That's exciting. I'm glad. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your work. I learned a lot, and I'm excited to watch you hit the road and do more. So I appreciate your work so much.
Thank you so much, Karen.
As humans, we are in love with our stories. When we go out to eat with friends, when we watch TV or social media drama unfolding, the stories we tell, and sometimes get stuck in, are stories that often leave us the victim of the story. We define ourselves as survivors, even subtly one-upping each other with the horror of our personal stories. But what if we're not supposed to just survive? What if we're here to thrive, to use our life experiences, our stories, as catalysts for growth, as a pathway of reclaiming sovereignty over who we decide we are? We are not victims of our stories. Yes, things can and do happen to us that are beyond our control. And yes, we do need time to process and heal. But ultimately, the power to change your story and rewrite it in your authentic voice is the one thing no one can ever take from you. Before we can reclaim sovereignty over our stories, we need a roadmap. We need a way out of the void where many of us get stuck in survivor syndrome. We need to reclaim the cosmic skills of our innate creativity and reactivate our power to direct the flow of intention. We need to remember that we can rearrange the quantum particles that create our reality by telling better stories. You can learn more about the work of Kamakshi Hart by visiting her website, kamakshiheart.com. If you'd like to help kickstart your capacity to direct the flow of the cosmos, get your free quantum human design chart at freehumandesignchart.com. I'm Dr. Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for joining me for Quantum Revolution. Here's to better stories of possibility, healing, fulfillment, and abundance.
Thank you for joining us on Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker. For more information on how to change your world and to hear more about our guest today, visit quantumrevolutionpodcast.com. Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so you don't miss a single episode of Quantum Revolution. We'll see you next time for some more groundbreaking conversations with Karen and her guests. How will you impact your world today?